Before we begin, please take a second to like and subscribe, as it helps out the channel a lot. Thank you. This happened in the summer of 2018 when I was 21. I was home from college, working part-time as a lifeguard at a local community center pool in my hometown. It's one of those indoor facilities that stays open year-round, with a main lap pool, a kiddie pool, and locker rooms that haven't been renovated since the early 2000s. The job was easy. I mostly just sat in the elevated chair and watched people swim. Occasionally dealt with a kid running on the deck or someone throwing a beach ball where they shouldn't. But nothing serious, at least not until the Thursday shift. It was a slow evening, maybe 6:30 p.m. A handful of swimmers in the lap pool, a couple moms with toddlers in the shallow end, and that was it. My coworker Jenna had left early, so it was just me and the maintenance guy Dave, who was somewhere in the back fixing a light. I had about 15 minutes left in my shift when I noticed something weird. There was this guy sitting in the hot tub, mid-40s, maybe 50, balding, pale, with a pair of fogged-up goggles still on his forehead, just kind of staring at nothing in particular. I had seen him come in maybe 40 minutes earlier. He hadn't moved since. No splashing, no talking, just hunched over, watching the water swirl. Okay, maybe he was just relaxing. No big deal. But what creeped me out wasn't the stillness. It was what happened next. At around 6:45, I did my final walkthrough, standard closing routine. I checked the pool deck, did a quick sweep of the locker rooms to make sure no one was in there. When I got to the men's locker room, the lights were flickering, which wasn't new. Half the building had ancient wiring. I called out, "Anyone still in here?" No answer. Then I heard a noise, a soft, wet slap, like bare feet on tile. I rounded the corner, expecting to see someone toweling off or grabbing their stuff. But the room looked empty, except for one stall door. The kind with changing benches and curtains instead of locks was half shut. I walked over, paused, and called out again. Silence. Then another slap. Closer. I pushed the curtain back slightly and saw a soaked towel crumpled on the bench, and a pair of feet just standing there behind the divider. Not moving, not turning to look at me, just facing the corner like someone in timeout. I froze. The guy hadn't answered me, but he was clearly in there. I backed away and said, "Sir, the pool's closing. You all right?" Still no answer. I stepped out fast, went to the front, and called for Dave on the walkie. He didn't respond. I didn't want to go back in there alone, so I waited, watched the hallway. After a minute or so, I saw the guy from the hot tub, the bald one, walking out with a towel over his shoulder, heading toward the locker room. But here's the thing. He was dry, fully dressed, carrying his gym bag. So who the hell was in the stall? I grabbed my phone, stepped outside, and called Dave directly. Told him to meet me by the men's room because something felt off. When we both got back in there, maybe 5 minutes later, the stall was empty. The towel was gone. No footprints, no wet spots. Whoever it was, they'd either left or hidden somewhere else. We checked the supply closet, the showers, even behind the vending machines in the hallway. Nothing. We decided to review the security cameras the next day. What we saw made me sick. At around 6:32 p.m., a man, not the bald guy, entered through the emergency side door near the gym, which should have been locked. He was wearing jeans, a hoodie, and carrying a duffel bag. No swimwear. He walked past the front desk unnoticed and straight into the locker room. For 23 minutes, he didn't come out. Then at 6:55 p.m., just minutes after I walked away from that stall, he left through the same side door. He never signed in, never went near the water. We paused the footage on a frame of his face. Blurry, but you could make out enough. Mid-30s, short beard, dead stare. Not a member. Not a regular. The police reviewed the footage. They said he was likely using the pool as a place to hide, maybe from someone, maybe to watch someone, or worse. Turns out, 2 weeks prior, a woman reported seeing a man in the family locker room crouched behind a bench with a phone in his hand, camera on. He ran before security could catch him. They think it was the same guy. Needless to say, I quit 2 weeks later. Now, I never go swimming in public pools anymore. Not because of the water, not because of drowning, but because you never really know who's watching or why they're there in the first place. I've never been a thrill seeker. I don't watch horror movies, I don't like roller coasters, and I definitely never wanted to explore abandoned places. But a few years ago, I went through a period of, let's call it a lapse in judgment. It was the fall after I dropped out of college. I was in this weird, aimless phase, working night shifts at a gas station, sleeping during the day, and spending way too much time online. That's where I met Jack and Miguel, two guys from a local urban exploration Discord server. They were older, in their late 20s, but they weren't creeps or anything, just kind of lost, like me. One night, Jack posted pictures from an old psychiatric hospital on the outskirts of town. It had been abandoned for over 30 years, left to rot after a fire took out one of the wings. The state sealed it off and supposedly demolished part of it, but a lot still stood, untouched, moldy, and forgotten. Jack called it Haverhill Asylum, though I could never find that name in any official record. The pictures showed dark, crumbling hallways, rusted bed frames, and stacks of patient files scattered across the floor. Something about it got under my skin. I told myself it was just curiosity, but honestly, I was feeling numb. I wanted to feel something. Fear, maybe. So when Jack invited me to check it out with him and Miguel, I said yes. We met at midnight in a strip mall parking lot. Jack handed me a flashlight and a cheap respirator mask. Air quality's probably shit, he said. Asbestos and whatever else. The asylum sat behind a chain-link fence deep in the woods. We hiked for 20 minutes in the dark, guided by Jack's phone and trail markers he'd spray painted on trees during past visits. The building itself was enormous, a mix of red brick and weathered concrete choked in vines with shattered windows staring like empty eyes. The main entrance was sealed with concrete blocks, but Jack led us around the back to a broken window on the ground floor. The second we stepped inside, the smell hit me. Mold, rot, and something sharp underneath, metallic. It was disgusting to say the least. Inside, it was worse than the pictures. Graffiti covered every wall. Nature was reclaiming the place, roots growing through tile, leaves curling through cracks in the ceiling. We moved slowly, stepping over debris, listening to the echo of our own footsteps. The first hour wasn't too bad. We took photos, peeked into empty offices, old rec rooms and bathrooms gutted by scavengers. The further in we went, the more claustrophobic it felt. The air got thicker, heavier, like we were sinking underwater. It started getting difficult to breathe in there. Then we found a door. It was at the end of a long hallway, covered in peeling blue paint, different from the others. The lock was still intact. No graffiti, no signs of anyone breaking in. That's when Miguel said something that made my skin crawl. This was the lockdown wing. Jack frowned. What? Like high-risk patients? Yeah, violent ones. There was a pause. I half laughed, half choked. You knew this was here? Miguel shrugged and said, didn't think it was still sealed. Jack started messing with the lock. If nobody's been in here, that means it's untouched. Untouched means photos. Let's at least look. He got the door open in less than 5 minutes. The metal creaked like it hadn't moved in decades. Inside, it was pitch black and ice cold. The flashlight revealed a long hallway narrower than all the others. The doors on either side were steel, not wood. Small, square windows at eye level. Most were fogged or too dirty to see through. One of them wasn't. I walked up to it and wiped the glass with my sleeve. Inside was a bed, no mattress, just rusted springs. The walls were scratched violently, like someone tried to dig their way out with their nails. In the far corner, I saw something that looked like a pile of clothes. I leaned in. It wasn't clothes, it was a mattress, torn apart, and on it, something darker, something that looked too much like dried blood. I stepped back. Then Jack called us over. He'd found the room with the patient files, boxes and boxes of them, still intact. Most of the pages were stuck together, but he pulled one out that wasn't. The name was redacted, but the notes weren't. Subject shows extreme violent tendencies, requires full isolation. Incident 6788 resulted in fatality of attending nurse. Subject is not to be interacted with unsupervised. Then there was a line at the bottom. Door mechanism modified after breach. Key required from 2 locations, nurses station A and basement security. I remember reading that and thinking, they locked someone in here, someone who killed a nurse, and they built a system to make sure that door couldn't be opened by accident. But here we were, inside. We kept going because we were idiots. Deeper into the wing, the air felt stale, the mold was thicker, our flashlights started to run out of battery. Not all at once, just every now and then, one of our flashlights would get dimmer. We knew we had to wrap it up and get out of there, because without a working flashlight, it's near impossible to find your way out of there in pitch darkness. At the end of the hallway was one more door. It was different. No window, heavier, like a vault, and it was open, just slightly, just enough to see the metal latch had been snapped, not picked, not unlocked, but snapped. Inside was a small room, chains bolted into the wall, a broken camera in the corner, and scratch marks, deep ones, on the concrete floor. Jack stepped in first. "Guess this was the special room," he said. I remember him saying that because that's the last thing he said before we heard it. Not a voice, not footsteps, breathing. It was heavy and close. Miguel swung his flashlight toward the hall we came from. Nothing. Then it clicked off. So did mine. Jack's went last. Total darkness. I don't remember the next few seconds. Just screaming. Someone crashed into me. I fell. My head hit something hard. That's the last thing I remember. I woke up to daylight at the hospital. My flashlight was gone, so was my backpack. My phone was dead. My legs were covered in scrapes. I had no idea how I got out of there until Jack and Miguel came by to see me. They explained how they encountered a crazy homeless person living in there, and how they managed to drag me out of there, possibly saving my life. I'm still thankful to them for not leaving me behind with that crazy person. But sometimes, when it's really late and really quiet, I hear it again in my head. That slow, ragged breath. And I wonder what would have happened if my friends had left me behind. This happened in the summer of 2018, right after junior year ended. I was 17 at the time. Like most teenagers, all that really mattered to me was girls, music, and not being home. That summer had this kind of endless, dreamlike vibe. Long days, warm nights, and nothing to do but hang out with friends and pretend adulthood wasn't breathing down our necks. We knew big responsibilities were heading our way, so we wanted to make the best of it while we could. My friend Evan had the kind of house we all low-key envied. 2 stories, big yard, massive patio, and the best of all, a big pool. Not just one of those circular above-ground ones either. It was in-ground, deep end, and everything, with lights that changed color underwater and a small stone waterfall. He was from a decently wealthy family, let's put it that way. Evan's parents were going out of town for their anniversary, and instead of leaving him with a babysitter or making him stay at his aunt's house like usual, they trusted him. Looking back at it now, it was a big mistake. The party had been planned for weeks. We kept it mostly quiet, no flyers, no mass texts, just word of mouth, friends of friends. Still, about 25 people showed up, which is more than we expected. It started around sunset with people swimming, drinking, flirting, classic summer vibes. Everything was going a bit too well. By 10:30, the energy shifted. Not in a bad way, just calmer. The sky had that deep velvet blue tint to it. Music was playing from a speaker. Everyone sort of clustered around the patio and the pool. People had broken into little groups, some in the water, some smoking behind the garage, some hooking up in the basement. I was sitting near the edge of the pool with this girl I liked, Jenna, just talking and trying to build up the nerve to make a move. While I was talking to her, I noticed something. There was a guy standing outside the backyard fence, about 30 feet from us, behind the wooden slats, near the corner where the yard met the trees. The fence was 6 feet tall, but this section had small gaps between the boards. Through them I could see someone, tall, wearing a black hoodie, just standing there facing us. He wasn't part of the party. I was sure of it. I tapped Jenna and pointed, and she squinted toward the fence. She saw him too. She got concerned and asked in a shaky tone if he was watching us. I didn't want to come across as scared, so I told her everything is fine and that it's probably just some neighbor. The guy didn't move, just leaned against the fence with one arm. He had his hood up, which covered most of his facial features. I figured maybe it was someone trying to crash the party, or just some random perv hoping to see someone skinny dipping. I told Evan. He walked over to the edge of the yard and shouted at the guy to keep it moving. No answer. The guy turned and walked slowly along the fence, dragging one hand along the wood as he went. He didn't say anything, just strolled along until he vanished behind the trees near the back corner of the yard. At that point, we were more confused than scared. It was late. We were teens. The alcohol dulled the seriousness of it. A few people laughed it off, saying maybe it was just a bored neighbor or someone who thought it was another house. But looking back, I knew something was off. That dude wasn't drunk, wasn't lost. He knew what he was doing. About 15 minutes later, someone realized the side gate was wide open. That part still freaks me out because it had been closed all night. Evan made a point to shut it when the first wave of people arrived. There was a heavy latch on it, and it made a loud creak when you opened it. But no one heard a thing. We started getting paranoid. People began checking their phones, wallets, purses, and that's when it hit us. Stuff was missing. Not a ton of stuff, but enough to notice. One girl said her purse was gone. Another guy swore he left his phone on the table near the grill, and now it was nowhere to be found. The problem was, everyone was drunk, so we couldn't tell if people had actually lost things or just forgotten where they put them. Evan thought someone inside the party was taking stuff. He even accused one of his cousin's friends. Things got heated really fast. We did our best to calm everyone down and decided to go inside the house to see if anything was missing there. Then, around 11:45, we heard a splash. Not the casual kind, like someone doing a cannonball. This one was loud, like someone diving or falling into the deep end. Everyone ran out of the house and went to check. There was no one there. The pool lights were on. You could see every inch of it, but no one was inside the pool. Nothing below, nothing floating. But the weird part was the surface of the pool. It was still rippling like someone had just jumped in. A few guys ran over, looked around, even dove in to double check underwater. Nothing. People were rattled now. The fun, carefree party atmosphere was officially dead. Some people started leaving. I wanted to leave, but my phone was gone. It had been for probably half an hour, and I didn't even notice until then. That's when the power cut out. Total blackout. No music, no lights. Just the blue glow of a couple pool lights and a bunch of panicked teens screaming while pulling out their phone flashlights. At first we thought maybe someone tripped the breaker. Evan ran inside to check, but he came back looking freaked out. He said the sliding glass door was locked, from the inside. That made no sense. We had all been in and out of the house the whole evening. No one remembered locking it, and Evan swore he left it open. Then he said the key his parents kept under the mat was gone. We all gathered near the patio, confused and getting seriously scared now. Then Jenna, the same girl I was sitting with earlier, let out this soft, "Oh my God," and pointed toward the pool. There, standing ankle-deep in the water at the far end, was a man. Black hoodie, jeans, head tilted downward. His face was hidden, but you could see his hands, pale, wet. He was breathing hard, chest rising and falling like he'd just run a mile. No one said a word. It felt like time stopped. Evan took a step forward and yelled at him to leave. But the guy didn't respond. He just turned, slowly, then took off, sprinting toward the back fence. He cleared it in one fluid motion. Gone. We called the cops. They arrived 10 minutes later. Evan had called from someone else's phone because his was lost somewhere. The cops searched the yard and found a few disturbing things. A bolt cutter hidden behind a bush, a small black backpack stashed under a chair full of phones, wallets, and a knife. A second pair of shoes, soaking wet, left near the trees. Worse, they said the back door of the house had muddy footprints leading inside. Not ours. Meaning, at some point during the party, while we were drinking, swimming, laughing, he had been inside the house. We gave the best description we could, but they never found him. No fingerprints, no ID, just the backpack, the shoes, and a vague description of what he looked like. The thing that scares me the most is that he's still somewhere out there. We still don't know what his intentions were or what he wanted from us. That was the last pool party I ever went to.